Just look at this for a moment. It looks absolutely spectacular, right? And what type of game does it belong to? Well, it's the sci-fi gunship, and you're policing a dystopian city from the air. The exact type of game that disappeared around 25 years ago. The last great one was, of course, Grebles. And looking at this, you might feel that it doesn't exactly look dead, does it? Well, that's because what we've got here is a small German studio, a team that's been making games since 1991 actually, decided to bring the genre back. This game then is called Grebles, and it's a spiritual successor to the one I mentioned just a moment ago. It's out now, it's an early access, and it's got one of the best flight models you're likely to play in this type of game. Now here, you see me flying over the city called Davos. And it's at the centre of a flooded Earth future where humanity lives in vast floating megacities, fighting over what's left. Now, this is generally one of my favourite things about the entire game. Both the ambience here as well as the environment. It's dystopian, it's very much futuristic, and it certainly won't look out of place in Blade Runner. We've got these dense, towering, rain-slicked cities, and, well, it's alive with traffic moving through the air around you. One of the things that hooked me in is the full day-night cycle of this city. It genuinely transforms a place. At night, it's all neon lit, glowing, moody, electric. In daytime, the sky's clear and you see the sheer scale of everything. And then, at sunset, the whole city transforms again as it catches the golden light and everything just glows. On top of that, more environments are planned for the future, at 12,000 square kilometers of it in fact, and most of them are surrounding the archipelago and other megacities that will crop up throughout early access as the game goes on. Now, graphics aside, and these graphics are very nice, I think you'll agree, a game like this does, fortunately or unfortunately, live or die on one thing above all else, and that is the flight model. You get that wrong, and nothing else matters. Pretty much everything will fall apart. The good news is that Grebles delivers on this in spades, and I knew almost immediately that the developers knew exactly what they're doing here. You can feel it the moment you press the forward key in the tutorial and the ship starts moving forward. The ship itself has real momentum, real weight, but it's also highly manoeuvrable, and crucially, it does feel very much like its own thing. We've not got a jet here, it doesn't feel like a helicopter or a video game version of a helicopter. Instead, it feels very much like a future vehicle. It's got its own logic and its own way of moving, and you have to get used to that, but it comes pretty intuitively. The even better news is that Grebles manages to avoid the problem that so many space games, so many flight sims actually get wrong. In a lot of games, you end up feeling like you're flying a camera. And I want to be very clear here, it does not feel like you're flying a camera in any way whatsoever in Grebles. I think you know the sort of sensation I mean here, where the vehicle is really just a viewpoint like a camera with a gun bolted on. It's weightless, it's disconnected. Grebles never feels like that at all. It really feels like you're flying this futuristic ship. And on a game that's built all around flight, that of course is absolutely, well, it's vital really, and the Grebles game has absolutely nailed it. Now, there's one thing I want to talk about here that a lot of games don't really focus on, or at least people don't tend to talk about too much when it comes to games, and it's one of those things when it's missing, you really notice it, and when it's really exceptional, it can be sublime, but also disappear into the background. And that is sound design. In Grebles, it's some of the best I've heard in a while, and it's absolutely everywhere. The weather has some really nice audio to it. You can really hear the storms when that lightning goes off, when the rain is cascading down. Explosions, they feel nice and hefty. You get sometimes these little double explosions where the first one just kind of pops relatively faintly, and then you get this kind of rumbling explosion as the second explosion cascades onwards. Now, the jet engine from the ship itself, this can feel genuinely strong, depending on what you're doing. Kind of when you start moving, you really feel this kind of subtle roar. It's not like you're in a jet fighter from Earth where it's absolutely overpowering everything, but it's there and it feels so suitably powerful as well. And then there's this really beautiful use of deep bass at key moments. Sometimes that can be from an explosion like I just described, other times it can be as you go into a certain menu, and other times it can be at key moments of a game, just as a ship docks or as a ship flies past you, or as you're unexpectedly ambushed by a trio or more of hostiles. So like I say, I really do feel that sound is one of those things that kind of disappears in game development, not because it's not actually done, but because when it's done well, it kind of goes unnoticed, it's taken for granted. And it has to be really exceptional to stand out. And here it is, for me at least, kind of standing out, well, pretty well actually. Now, I'm sure you'll be wondering what sort of things you do in these games. Well, it's all about patrolling the environment. Now, to all intents and purposes, you sit above the police in the grand scheme of things, but it's your job to ensure that everything is safe. Although you do have some, what we could class as extra legal powers to actually do that. You play a faction who is effectively above the law, but you don't really want to cause any trouble with the police because they will come after you, and then you'll have to take the police out as well. As you might expect them from a cyberpunk-infused future, the type of missions you'll be doing here are patrol missions. There'll be missions where you're tracking down people who the system just doesn't really like for one reason or another. Maybe they're genuinely a bad guy, or maybe they're just part of a faction that's making a bit too much money and could be done with or disappearing. You can also take on mercenary work from the Black Widow Corporation. These are somewhat shady contracts, but that said, they do pay you pretty well. You'll also find yourself doing some escort missions, as you can see me doing on the screen right here. And I actually really like this mission because it displays very nicely the type of environment that the game is set in. Not just the city itself, but also, the ship that you're escorting. Just look at it. I think this is quite a standout design. And when you do eventually get attacked, you'll have to fend those off. But the ship itself that you're escorting isn't absolutely defenseless. It's got these massive guns on that will pivot and target the hostiles attempting to assist you in its defense. Talking of combat then, what does it play like? Well, for me, it's sort of a blend between a bit of an arcadey type shooter game and a sim. It's not full-on sim, obviously, but I'd say it's far and away from pure arcade as well. In fact, the closest similarity I can think to is probably Free Space 2, and that's going back some time. But those of you who will have played it will know exactly what I mean. It's obviously got a very different flight model. As I said earlier on, this has got a lot of weight to it, and you're kind of affected by the gravity of the planet, I guess. You don't want to be crashing into the ground. But in terms of how the combat itself works, I do feel that Free Space 2 is a very good example. You've effectively got your main weapon, which is a laser at the start, as well as missiles that you'll unlock a little bit later on. Each of these can be upgraded if you head to the upgrades shop, and you're about to upgrade the other parts of the vehicle as well. And as for combat, well, your ship has shields and a hull. The shields regenerate over time on their own, but real damage is anything to the hull that will degrade, and you'll need to go to a repair shop to actually get that fixed. Now, the game does have a story to it, and that is pretty linear. You'll go and take on the main quest missions, but the game itself is also open world. So that means you can take on the main missions and progress through the story, or you can go out and do some side quests, which can include bounty hunting, races, escort missions, smuggling, and pretty much anything else that you can get your hands on. So if you take just one thing away from this video, then the thing that I would like that to be is that, well, if there's any one thing about the game that I've spoken about, any one of those is good on their own. Whether that's the flight model, the environments themselves, which are gorgeous, the sound effects, which are really superb, and the combat itself, which is also very nice. And the missions, of course, give you room to roam. They let you do pretty much what you want, but they also have the campaign element as well. But here's the thing, there's very few games that actually bring all the various parts together and serve you one big vision. And I've seen this before, rarely. The last one I really couldn't think of was Everspace 2. And what I said about that game, I'm going to say about this game as well. All of the individual components in Grebles come together in a very coherent way that makes the whole game far more than the sum of its parts. So yes, high praise for this game, but I do feel it's warranted. That said, it does of course come with the big caveat that right now this is in early access, so the game isn't in its full final form just yet, and it's going to need to evolve significantly along the way. But what we're looking at here is not a game that's been stripped down to its base parts, a game that's got a poor flight model that they're planning on improving later, or a game that's got placeholder graphics that just don't cut it just yet but need to improve. No, we've got a perfect slice of the game where all those things work very well now, and over time the developers are planning on improving that and adding in more content, as we would expect to see with those environments. More zones are planned over the coming months. So there we have it. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. There is another one on the screen if you want to check that out. Do take care, and I'll catch you next time.